I have one of those bright... I don't know what to do about that. I think it's the reflection of the light off the gear is making that bright line. I don't know what to do about it. Anyway, I guess I could park myself over in the shade, but then I'd have to set something up. Now, I've decided to sit out here for longer, and then I'm going to go for a walk, even though I went swimming this morning and it is actually aggravating my knee. But I don't... What else can I do? I mean, what kind of activities can I do to help my back? I gotta stay in shape somehow. So, anyway, I'm gonna continue to swim and walk a bit, and then maybe it'll... I mean, the walking hurts my back and knee, and the swimming hurts my back and knee. But you know what? Maybe not as much. Let's see. What other option do I have? So, we watched this movie, which... American Animals. Very good. This was one of the best movies I've seen. They did such an artful job of telling the story, and everyone needs to watch it. It's just a bunch of college-age guys. Well, 4 of them, eventually. Really, it's 2, and really more than anything, it's the 1. Who decide to try to steal some very valuable books in the United States. And now they made it out the door with a few of them, actually. But, I mean, they didn't make it far because they're really, they weren't that bright, you know, like, honestly. And it's really telling, you know, like I think it's the one guy was, I think it was Warren, was talking about it in the movie. He says, you know, we grow up thinking that we're special, and we're not, and this and that, right? Here he was special. For his parents had worked really hard to train him to be an athlete. For, you know, maybe that wasn't his bag, but whatever. I mean, got a scholarship to go to college, do something with it. But he didn't, you know, he wasn't showing up for class. He was just smoking pot and doing silly petty crime things, you know, because it was fun. I don't know. And anyway, and I mean, each of these guys has a talent. Like the one guy's an entrepreneur, and you can see he's a successful sort of guy. He would at what he was doing, right? And just keep with it. And the one guy was an amazing artist. So what's wrong with that, you know? And the other one was training to be in the FBI, I think. So I mean, these guys, they weren't, I shouldn't say they're a bunch of stupid college-age guys. I mean, everyone's not that bright when they're college-age, honestly, really. I mean, the smartest people in the world may be talented at one particular thing when they're in college, but hopefully they broaden their... Anyway, whatever. But they didn't end up making off with the art, and I wonder if it was ever in the cards. I wonder if this guy, like, really, it was Warren was the ringleader kind of guy, and he didn't want to be a sports person. You could tell everything that he had trained to be since he was like 5, he didn't want to be. So, and he ended up being a filmmaker. Well, I mean, does it really hurt him having to spend 7 years in prison and then become a filmmaker? I mean, they get their 5 seconds of infamy or whatever from doing this, right? And so does the artist. Does this hurt him going to prison for 7 years? Not really, you know. He comes out and he's an artist. He was always going to be. And the other guy, the entrepreneur, I mean, you can always come back from criminal background if you're going to be the CEO or whatever. So But the FBI guy, I mean, he ended up writing books, so that might work out in his favor. Maybe he didn't really want to be an FBI guy. I don't know. But the FBI is certainly not going to hire him, or I wouldn't imagine they would. I mean, what would I know? But anyway. People. So this is, I mean, how this was put together is so telling and so artful. I mean, you have the, I mean, I'm giving away some scenes, but like there was, my favorite scene really was where the two main people were doubled in each scene. So they have the actual Warren and the actual Spencer giving their sides of the story, right? And they don't always mesh, because people can't remember details exactly and whatever. And so their stories aren't exactly the same, and that's interesting, that their descriptions of people or whatever are not in sync. And you see that, right? They show you that. And but they have the actors who are playing them sometimes in the scenes with the actual people, which is really interesting. So like there's one moment where Spencer sees himself as the artist working out of a garage that he became, and then at the end he sees himself, right? And from the other direction. And then, but my favorite scene was where the two Warrens, the actor Warren and the real Warren, were sitting in the car and talking to each other. They're like, yeah, I don't remember it this way, but whatever, It's great. This is one of the best things I've ever watched. I'm so glad that I watched it. And it was really telling about what we're actually faced with, people around, college age or whatever, lately. Anyway, this is where society's heading, People don't really want to work for it, but they want to have it all. And they don't value the work that everyone around them has put in to get that. So, anyway, I had an interesting weekend because anyway, I talked to my grandma about it. I was deeply disturbed. James might talk about it. There was an obvious drug deal occurring in the bank. We went to do banking, and there was right in the bank. So they didn't care that the cameras were on them. They were still doing it. That's the state of how bad drugs are in this city. They didn't care that the cameras were on them. They were using those the security from the bank to their advantage, really, because that way, the cameras, they have the money. They don't have to be walking around town holding their drug money or their drugs. It's just the exchange is made. They can go do the deposit rate in the bank. And it was obvious. And if it's obvious to James and I, it's obvious to the police, and they're not doing anything. So, I don't know. My grandma thinks I'm perfectly safe. So, an interview with God. This was just dreadful. But, anything following American Animals would have seemed dreadful. So, I don't know. But, God, that was awful. Anyway, Star Trek Discovery, Season 1. I didn't expect much from this. Because, I watch every one of the Star Trek things. Because, I grew up watching Captain Kirk and his the first Star Trek series, and then the Star Trek movies, which weren't as good. My dad, this was something we would have shared too, because he would have watched Captain Kirk, I mean, the first Star Trek series went on for quite a while, and then it was in reruns. Before, before there was, before the movies started being made, there was a lot of Captain Kirk around on the TV set, and then once they had success with TNG, and after that they just kept pouring out the new series of Star Trek. So, and for a while there, I'd get cable in the summer, because they'd put on, Shaw would put on cheap cable packages for the summer, because I guess people don't watch it in the summer. I don't know, but that's really the only time I needed it, because I needed the Weather Channel. So, because I like to know what I'm getting into when I'm working outside or hiking or whatever. That's what I need the weather more than anything is. So that made it easy for me to work and hike, having the cable, and it was cheap. So anyway, when I wasn't working, Star Trek of some sort of series was on Space Channel. It was like, it was the Star Trek channel, Space Channel. And then the History Channel was the Hitler Channel. There was really nothing but Hitler on there. I don't know. But this was great. It was made in Canada. It's a CBS thing. And I can't remember what his name is, but the actor who played Dwight Schrute from The Office was in this, which was nice. It was good to see him. And he did not play a nice person in this. But I don't know, maybe we'll see more of him in future seasons. Who knows? But this was really well put together. They really thought this through. I was impressed. I think it's better than, well, I mean, I love the original series. It's so campy. So I mean, nothing's going to beat that. But of any of the sequel series, the whatever, I think this is the best one so far. So totally watch it. It's good. I'm gonna go for a walk because it's so beautiful. It's gonna hurt.